Hey there guys, I'm Lee Williamson and I'm from Elemental Concepts. Today we're going to be discussing how to edit time in After Effects. But before we begin, I just want to point out there's a poster at the back of my wall. I recently went to Video Copilot's Europe trip, and there was this awesome London-based animation company called 23rd C. They had a wicked sense of humor and their approach to their work was fantastic. I'll be sure to send you a link. You really want to see these guys. They are definitely someone to keep an eye on. Without further ado, let's dig in. So we're going to create a new composition. Let's just call it ball. We make a circle. Really cool trick here without pressing Y on your keyboard to get your anchor point. And trying to get it centerized. A really nice method I found out recently is you can hold down Control Shift or Command Shift and go to your pen tool at the top and just double click it and it centers it for you. Right, so the next step would be to bring the ball down here. Let's just scale it down to right size. Okay, so I'm just gonna animate a ball bouncing. So let's just call it ball. Press P on the keyboard, right click, separate dimensions, and I'm going to drop in the stopwatch on the Y because I want it to bounce up. 10 keyframes forward. Let's just zoom in here a little bit. Make the ball go nice and high into the air. Maybe bring the ball down a little bit lower there. Cool, so we have a ball going up. We're going to drop another keyframes down and duplicate the beginning keyframe. So we have the ball going up into there and down to the air. Press F9 on your keyboard, add easy ease. Go into your graph editor, pull down these arms. I have no idea what you really call them in After Effects. Delete this frame over here. And now we have this ball flying up and falling down. Now to get a second bounce, which will be a little bit weaker and probably about half the size, we can hold down Control on the keyboard or Command. Drag these little arms and make sure this arc is half the size and half the length. And do the same thing again, half the size, hold down Command, pull down these little arms. If you hold down, Command on the keyboard to break the arms. What is it? Alt on the keyboard, you can break that arm. Cool. So we have the ball bouncing, boom, boom. And then you can go into your X position. We're not going to put any easy ease on here. Drag out your frames. And you got the ball bouncing, boom, boom, boom. Go to your last frame and press F9 so that it eases out at the very end. Boom, boom, boom. Cool. It's probably just also worth going back into these curve editor and just making sure that all these arms are the right length and right angle. They should all be equal in their angles. And you'll notice when I edit this, the arcs become more cylindrical. Okay, cool. So we got a ball bouncing and stopping. Now, let's just save that out. Now, the first question that Peter in my office was asking is how do we edit the time of this animation? And the first technique would be you can select all the keys. You hold down Alt on your keyboard and you go to your last key and you can just drag it in. And now it's gone faster. Now if I just say Control Z, the other way to do it, it would be to right click, go into time and go to time stretch. Now currently it's set it to 100. Say to 200. And now your keyframes will be double the length, so it'll be slower. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so I'm just gonna Control Z that, so just bring that back to what it was originally. The other method would be to, let's see, what is it? So we've done time stretch, we've done alt drag. You have something called time warp. So if you go into your effects and we go to time warp, we can drag this effect onto the ball. And if you look over here, it is 50. So currently that is half the speed. So what it's doing is it's slowing down the animation and essentially adding in more keyframes in between. You can actually see the path of the original ball compared to the new one. Now, if you go into method over here, you have three settings called whole frames, frame mix, and mix motion. So imagine you had a video footage where you wanted to slow down your animation really slow and didn't record it with extra keyframes on the camera. This would be the method to add in extra keyframes. Now, whole frames is more likely when you're doing something like a vector animation that I'm doing here. So if I press whole frames, you'll also notice your RAM preview on your timeline is a lot faster. If you go into your frame mix or your pixel motion, you it basically adds extra keyframes in but tries to frame blend them. So these two would be much better for video footage. So in the meantime, we'll just have it on the whole frames. So I'm going to turn that off in the meantime. Now, another cool method is we currently have this animation running at 25 frames a second. You can also use an effect called Posterize time. So if you drag Posterize time on there, what Posterize time does is, imagine you're at a stop frame animation. Now, stop frame animation is usually done at 12 frames a second. So if we wanted that kind of more of a jittery type of effect, we can half this to 12 frames a second. And what it does is that the animation doesn't change in its animation length, but just removes a frame in between each frame. So you get more of a kind of a classic hand-drawn animation style to it. A cool way to see this more broken down would be if you use Echo. Now, Echo is an effect which is a little bit like onion skinning inside of Flash. So let's just take that Echo and change that to maximum. And I'll put my Echo time down to about 0.5. And now if I drag forward, you can see there's an echo behind it. We could probably, now echoes are only to 1, so let's just put this to about 100. And you can see the keyframes represented there. Now if I had to put my Posterize time off, notice how it adds more frames. When I turn my Posterize time on, it removes every second, every odd number of your keyframe off, if that kind of gives you a better idea. Another cool way to use Posterize time, Echo, to add motion smears, which is pretty cool. You can change your Echo time to about 0.1. So it adds in more over there, and you can turn your echoes down to about, say, let's say 25, and you get this really cool motion smear effect, which is very useful animations. Now, what else have I not covered that's well useful? You could also add Posterize time manually to one of your stopwatches, which is also very useful. So if I press Alt click on the stopwatch and I type in Posterize time at 12, so 12 is the frame rate we're going to be changing it to. Now realize that you can't actually double up on Posterize time. You can only remove frames from it. So if you wanted to double up, you would be using TimeWarp. If you want to take some keyframes out, you'd be using Posterize time. Posterize time. So value, and now look only what it does to the Y value. It's got that really jittery effect, but notice how the X value is still easing in differently. I mean, so I could always just copy and paste this to the X value, and you should essentially get the same effect that I did when I put posterize time as a effect preset. Another cool way is, if you want to edit an animation, you can actually turn off your script without needing to delete it. There's a little equals button here, and you can just click them off. And that's a way to turn your script on and off. See, if I turn it back on again, it activates the script. And that's just a useful method when you are trying to edit keyframes. Unfortunately, when you add expressions to your timeline, you can't actually edit your keyframes as well. Sometimes it causes conflicting issues. So this is just a great way to deactivate it while you're editing your keyframes. Okay, so I can also turn my, let's just turn those expressions off for now. I can also pre-comp this. Let's just call this ball animation. And the final method would be if you right-click on your timeline and you go back to time and you use enable time remapping. And what it does is it adds a keyframe on the end and the beginning of the animation. So if I go into my clip, my ball stops bouncing at exactly, roughly 2 seconds. So I can drop a keyframe there. I can delete the end frame because we are only animating from year to year. And what I can do is if I want to slow down the time, I can just drag this out and that should slow down the time. So this is great for editing video footage or pre-comps. Another cool thing you can do is if you press Alt on the keyboard and you click on your stopwatch, you can go loop out, open brackets, close brackets. And now what it'll do is it'll just loop that same animation over and over. This is quite useful when you're animating characters' eyes and you just want them to keep blinking. And in fact, if I didn't want that ball to bounce straight away after the animation, I could just drop in, duplicate the final end keyframe where it rests, duplicate another one, and what it'll do is it'll animate to year, it'll wait, and then when it hits this keyframe, it'll start its loop again. So if I press spacebar on the keyboard, boom, 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 wait a little bit, and then it starts again. Right, so I've covered everything I know about time. I hope you guys enjoyed this. If you have any questions, please drop them on the comments section in YouTube. Thank you very much, guys. Cheers.